Welcome out, everybody, to Three Martini Solution Podcast, Episode 3. Jessica's not with us today due to some prior obligations. Yes, very sad for everybody involved. If you happen to be listening to this and you want more Three Martini Solution, go to threemartinisolution.com, YouTube channel, Three Martini Solution, Twitter, the number 3_SOLN, which that's the abbreviation for solution, in case people didn't know that. Instagram, the number 3 Martini SOLN. So we've been talking the last couple of weeks about the Oscars. I never planned that 2 weeks ago that we would, but here we are trying to figure out what happened at the Oscars like everybody else. I mean, as we sat here, it's been almost a week since it happened, and everybody under the sun has thrown their 2 cents in. So I don't know what people want to talk about, if anything more about it. But one of the things that had come up in previous weeks is the hosting with Amy Schumer and Wanda Sykes, Regina Hall. Lost in all this, I don't hear people mentioning much about how the hosting was. How did you think the hosting was, Casey?
I liked it. I mean, I wanted more because it was nice to be. Well, and I think in relation to what we just talked about with the slap heard around the world, as people are calling it, like when you have a host can all of a sudden draw the fire and be like, hey, camera over here, nothing to see, like, and manage like a live television thing a little bit more smoothly. I mean, that being said, I mean, and I also wanted more of their interactions. Like, they were pretty funny at the very beginning. I liked it. And I know everyone's like, oh, it's too long, and you're right, but it is what it is. I mean, every fundraiser I go to is too long. That seems to be like a common characteristic.
But no, go ahead if you.
One more thing, Amy Schumer, when she came back, her handling of, hey, what did I miss? There's something different in this room that was great. I mean,
yeah, that struck the right tone, I think. Totally agree.
Yeah. It's like awkward.
What did you think? Did you?
I didn't watch them. I'm one of those people that didn't watch at all. And then Ryan was like, "You won't." He was in another room, and he's like, "Will just hit Chris Rock." And of course, then I got on, and I did see in the ratings that so I'm one of, I think it was like 500,000 people that jumped on after that happened, and all I did was go back and I looked for the replays, but I didn't watch the rest of the Oscars. I heard Amy and Wanda and Regina did a great job. I mean, everything's overshadowed by the slap, and in some ways, like, we don't need to get into it. I think we need to all move on from it. They'll work it out. It's not our problem. It's not a lot of people's problem. There's actual real problems, but I feel bad for everyone involved. It's not
Well, it was really too bad
situation.
that Chris Rock hit on Jada Pinkett Smith like that. Did you hear?
Didn't hear that part. I must have missed that part of the broadcast.
Hear him say that?
No, what are you talking about?
Chris Rock says, "I love you, Jada. Can't wait to see you in G.I. Jane 2."
So that is why Will slapped.
I would have gone up and slapped him too. He was hitting on Jada right there. It was
right in front of his wife.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know why Will's paying the price here. A man hits on your wife in front of national TV. You're going to do something about it.
Yeah, it is interesting how it becomes, like I said, Emily, it starts off, I mean, on one level, it's something between 2 or 3 people, right? But then it becomes, because you're at an event, it becomes like an organization. And we've seen the Academy do their thing and act as clumsily as organizations often do in the moment and afterwards. But then it becomes, like, on Twitter and everywhere else, like this huge conversation all of a sudden becomes this surrogate for, I'm going to talk about the things I always talk about, right? And it becomes this one more thing in the, here's my, whatever cultural axe to grind it is. And it becomes so much, like within a day or two, it almost stops being about the thing and it becomes about everything else people have been chattering about. But anyway.
So going back, what I really wanted to say about the hosting, I thought it started off and it was a little clumsy. I think Wanda Sykes, she's a pro. Like, she hits her marks, she hits her lines, she's always there. She's great, and Regina Hall is one that really stood out to me as being funny. And even like when she kind of like improvised some of that stuff when she was like patting down people and things like that, like, you know, she was, I think she was holding her own against two really accomplished comedians, right? I think Amy was a little bit up and down at the first, but then I think she kind of got into a groove, and I agree with Casey, like nailed the coming back. Wow, isn't this drawing attention to the awkward thing and kind of relieving some of that pressure. So, I don't know.
Do any of the three of them perform as an ensemble, like in other, it doesn't, not just with the two, like, because that's a different skill, right? Because I think, they're all good on their own for things, but like, I thought some of the beginning, I think awkwardness is part of their brand a little bit, but like it's different to perform and work in a group like that and play off each other. And like that's a different skill than going up there and like you're the thing.
Well, I think Regina, is an actress, and Wanda is an actress. I don't know if she does much stand up now. Maybe she does, but I know her more as an actress at this point. Although obviously she started in stand up, so I think that they have those skills to work off of other people, maybe more than Amy did.
I think we call them actors now. I don't think we use the word actress. I don't know. Just kidding. Well, but I think that's
well. And the award is given to actress.
Okay,
in the
there you
role.
go.
So
I don't watch.
That may be a historic.
That's just.
You
could ignore the comments, Casey. You could just ignore the comments.
No, I want to engage with the comments. That's where all the good stuff happens. The good stuff happens in the comments. And people comment.
Please comment. All right. Well, so maybe a little bit later on, I did think an interesting article that I read this week that was tangentially related to the slap was why we do or do not like certain celebrities, which I think is an interesting conversation. I don't know, but instead of doing that now, let's maybe come back to it or unless you want to do it now. What do you think, Casey?
I don't
Let's
care.
do
Either
it now.
way.
Yeah, let's do it now. It seems to be kind of on the topic. Then we'll talk about group dining etiquette, which then we could put all this behind
we're going to need
us
to come
then
up
at
with
that point. Yeah.
Team and a spreadsheet because I have questions that I need answers.
Awesome.
I want you guys to really explain it because I know you both worked some food service and stuff before from different sides. So we're gonna hash it out, and it's gonna be the end all definitive. This is how you do it.
Okay. So I sent out the article. It was an article I just found. Was it on MSN? It was on MSN, just talking about somebody who probably is a lot smarter than me wrote an article about why we in society either like or don't like certain celebrities. Hopefully both of you read it in detail. Actually, you don't need to have. The article says what the article's going to say. Anybody can read it. I just want to know from you guys, like, what is it about certain celebrities that you either like or don't like? What makes you like them? What makes you don't like them? And the article is coming from the point of view of we just kind of look at certain people and they don't necessarily like flip us the middle finger or something, but there's just something about it that people don't like.
Yeah, it's tough because it's all about the marketing, right? We don't meet these people. We don't know them personally. And so it's all about whatever image is being portrayed. And I bet, when people are initially becoming celebrities, you can see how whoever they have as their PR people is the most important, crucial thing is to pick the right roles. And because that is how we view them and see them. And when we see them in interviews, right, if they're on like a talk show or something else, that's the closest we get to seeing the real them because they're they're ad-libbing to some extent, whatever's not scripted. But that's all we get, right? Are those interviews, and they're on their best behavior and trying to be funny and trying to do the things. I'm sure it's nerve-wracking, but in terms of who we like and who we don't like, I know we've seen movies together, and you'll say, "Oh, I just don't like that guy," or "I'll be like, I don't like that guy," or whoever it is, and it's about their look. I mean, some people are more approachable than other people. It's the look, it's the tone of voice, it's how someone embraces that character. And if I don't know, some people are more irritating than others. Something I don't like about if someone is acting, which I don't have skills in that area at all, and so I really admire people that put themselves out there and do that. But if an actor is the same in every single role, I don't like that, because I'm like, okay, you're not actually taking, you're just who you are, and I want people to be able to be versatile, and for me to actually believe they're in the character, and then I feel like I like them even if the character's good, bad, or otherwise. But I want it to be believable, and if it's not, I'm like, I don't really like this actor, because I'm seeing the actor instead of the character.
Yeah. What about you, Casey?
So I have to think of it in a couple ways. Like there are some that I love them because they are great at their craft. Like I love to watch them, like just a very highly skilled professional. I don't care what they do. I love to watch how they do what they do. I like to see them speak words, and like use their face as a canvas to do stuff. And they are fun to watch, and they make me feel feelings. And I love that. And I respect them as a professional in that way. That's on one side. But I think really what the article is talking about is like this outside of their professional work brand that they have that's really just as much a performance. And in some ways, there are some that I like because they're good at that performance. I don't actually care if it's real or not. Like, I mean, a good example is like Taylor Swift. The woman is masterful at this, and she's masterful at being goofy and all this stuff. Do I buy a lot of her albums? I buy some. I won't lie, I like some of that. But like, is she my favorite person? No, but she is fun to watch. And like when she was going through her lawsuit, and I read through her testimony, I was like, wow, this woman knows what she is. She's been very well prepared. She knows how to handle herself in a stressful situation. That's more than songwriting, singing, performing, whatever. Like that became just as much. So I love to watch that. But then part of it, I think too, is like, everybody used to, read literature about the royals and like the upper crust and different, like these, I think celebrities are sort of our upper crust, and we love to watch the drama between them. Like some we love to hate. Like look at Survivor, look at all these reality shows that like, it's sort of a performance on those two, and you just want to watch the drama because we're people and we're social animals, and you get to watch these people, and you get to watch people do crazy things that you don't have to do. Maybe you've thought about. Like I think all of the like pseudo celebrities, but even some of them that they do crazy things that you're like, I would never do that because for whatever reason, you wouldn't, but you're like, I sure have thought about it. And that would be really satisfying if I did flip the tables in the restaurant or whatever you've seen. So there's a part of it, which maybe it's that guilty pleasure thing we talked about last week, right? That there is a little bit of a guilty pleasure where you're like, I like watching people be train wrecks so that I don't have to.
Well, let's start.
That's probably too self-disclosure.
Yeah, well, let's throw out some names. And some of these names were mentioned in the article. So they said Anne Hathaway and James Corden, people don't like. I don't really know much about James Corden, but I do remember now, like a few years back, maybe 10 years ago or whatever it was, there was a lot of people really hating on Anne Hathaway. And I didn't really get that, but maybe she just, I don't know if people think she's just like, has one of those faces that they love to hate, or what it is, or
I think it's that earnestness that she's a really hard worker, but she has this
people
that turns. Yeah. Well, like when they're just so earnest and trying so hard.
Just want to knock them down.
Then you're like, yeah.
Why do we want to knock them down? Just because it's fun? Somebody who's happy and honest.
Because
yeah. Hey,
because everybody has an inner asshole that just wants to be nasty sometimes.
Yeah, okay. I buy that. I was just thinking, like, why do we do that? And maybe it's just because we're all assholes.
Well, but also we love to punch up, right? Another good example is like at the beginning of the pandemic, when all the celebrities decided to do the little Better World sing along for the John Lennon song or whatever, and everyone's like, oh, it's so hard, and everyone's like, yeah,
no, it's not.
No. People loved to hate that.
Who was it that Wonder Woman put that together?
Yeah, Gal Gadot.
Yes. Well, it's when they pretend to be like everybody else, and we're like, you're not. You have a team of people to make you look pretty, to make you act pretty, to all the things. So embrace it, but don't pretend you're like everybody else.
Well, and during the video, they obviously did not have people producing them or helping them look good because they sounded bad. A lot of them looked bad. Like, I think everybody
Right,
involved
right.
kind of looks back on it saying, "Ew, maybe we should have done that."
Their PR team sent out a message. I'm sorry, I'm working from home too. Can you tell?
Right. Well, I just do think it's interesting. I don't know if I'm not looking for an answer as how do we solve the problem. I don't even know if there is a problem. It's just like what we humans do. The one that I did find the most interesting is like, why do we really take swipes at people who are like, seem to be like genuinely excited about stuff? And I don't know. Kids do it to each other all the time when somebody acts too honest or something. Maybe it's a vulnerability and the animal part of our brains like, screw that.
It's
we're
the
gonna
bully
eat
part
you.
of us. Yeah.
We're gonna bully you.
We're like, if I'm not happy, you don't get to be happy either. If I'm not enjoying this or I'm not excited, I don't want you to be excited either.
Right.
Yeah, bullies are the worst. I was thinking about one of my childhood bullies, like not just like, I don't know, sometime in the last month. His name was Scott. I'm not going to put his last name on here. He tortured me for like junior high. So it was really like 7th and 8th grade. By 9th grade, I was a little more immune to that bullying. But when I look back at like the terrible things he said and the things that he would do, I liked him. I had a crush on him. So I had a crush on my bully, and that's a whole thing, right? And I know it's not, I don't think that's uncommon.
That's
but,
not
but maybe it's...
This is not advice.
So, it's just the truth.
Would you like to stop your bullying? Make a pass.
That's right. I'm here. Just ask me out. No, it was not like that. But it was terrible. But I can look back and I can, as an adult, obviously, like he didn't feel good about himself, nor should he have. He was a jerk. And other things that I'm not going to point out because I don't think people should be made fun of the way they. I don't think people should be made fun of for the way they look. But he had nothing to be a bully about, but he was, and he had older brothers. He was the youngest. And I thought,
that's why.
I bet he goes home and he gets beat up on or gets
He's
treated
one of
as a
those
little
younger
brother.
brothers that just can't take a joke. I get it.
Anyway, it's terrible.
I'm not going to comment because I'm not a younger brother.
Well, neither am I, but that's why I know that they can't take a joke.
Exactly. Well, Em, I think you have an interesting point. Like, what would it be like to go to high school with some of these personas, right? Because I was thinking, one of the people that I was thinking about, Ryan, that you brought up was like Gwyneth Paltrow. Can you imagine going to high school with Gwyneth Paltrow and she's trying to sell you on Goop and all that other stuff? Like, oh no, this is how you do it the right way, ladies. Like, anyway, I'm going to stop there because I'm not going to be kind if I continue. But I was like,
well, no, it's true. And it's
not my look at that catalog and be like, oh, I want to pay $10,000 for that. Nope.
Well, it's just, one of the names that was celebrity names that wasn't in the article, but I know that the people are pretty divisive about is like Tom Cruise, and they like his personal whatever with Scientology and all that kind of stuff gets a lot of press, and people seem to like dislike him just because of his religion or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I think I've been able to separate the actor from their personal life a bit more, so I can enjoy watching like Tom Cruise do whatever and not care one way or the other about what they do in their personal life.
Okay, well, let's just be clear. He doesn't do just whatever. Tom Cruise does only one thing. Tom Cruise runs and jumps and does his own stunts, and he's like the man. Like he's a one-trick pony.
Oh, he's not a one-trick
He's like the modern day
pony. He produces all those things. He runs everything.
But he's talking in terms of acting styles, right? I mean, he did Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise is always Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise can only play a Tom Cruise character. Like John Wayne, right? John Wayne could only play John Wayne characters. And he also produced and did some stuff in the background, I think, too. But I'm not an expert.
I hear what
on
you're saying, and I think you're probably right, but I want to disagree for the sake of disagreeing.
I'm a thumbs up on Tom Cruise. I think he's a great actor, even though it's true. What I just said about I don't like actors that are always themselves. He's an exception. There's probably other exceptions.
He's a cool actor
all
by himself. So there you go. Even if he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah, he's good.
Oh, see, I don't like him, but I'll watch him.
And I don't care about the Scientology stuff. That's his life. Good luck to you.
Right.
We'll see how it all shakes out after we're dead, and we'll find out that they were right.
Well, there's other people.
We don't know.
Right. There's other. That's right. We'll be sitting there, and
you were right,
Xenu
Tom.
or whatever he's gonna be like,
Yep.
no, Tom was right.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, crap. Damn it.
Yeah.
Wait, what about you? Said James Gordon?
James Corden.
Yeah, people
James
don't
Corden.
like him. He's so likable.
Yeah.
That was mentioned in the article. I've never seen his show.
People love him. And other
Oh gosh, he's so talented. I love the thing when he's in cars with people and they sing.
That's probably the only thing I've ever seen him do. I don't know him outside of that. Maybe it was because
I think that people hate him because of that. Like, he's so successful that way. Like, it's a juggernaut. And so they think he takes liberties that maybe he shouldn't.
I thought it was
like,
maybe because he was in that Cats movie.
Ooh. Haven't we forgotten about that yet?
No, there's like a 10-year statute of limitations that we could hate everybody in the Cats movie without given any reason.
Which I didn't even see it, so hating it. But that's an example. Did you see it? No, you didn't see it. Casey, did you saw it? You see all the things.
Dude,
Was it bad? Was it good? What'd you think?
Well, it's Cats.
Yeah.
Like, if you start off with the premise of, I'm going to tell you a slightly disjointed story that seems like an 80s musical video, like rock music video, gone wrong, base it on some strange poetry from the early 20th centuries, and have everyone walk around and act like cats. Like, what do you think?
Sounds
what do you think's
So
going to
did
happen?
they do the best with what they had? Right. I hope they had fun together, but
Well, I think they had fun, and there were parts that were interesting, but it's just because it's like too earnest, right? It's like they were taking it too seriously. So I think this is going to become one of those kitschy movies that you watch, like, it takes itself too seriously. Everyone's like, because there were some great performances in it, and amazing, like the dancing was incredible. If you like dancing and stuff meets Broadway, incredible stuff. So there's that, but you can't save the story from itself. It's just weird and poetic and dreamy.
It doesn't
and weird.
translate to the screen.
It's basic. No, well, that's not even it. It doesn't translate anywhere. The thing is, these cats are trying to, like, compete so that they can die. Because the one, I forget all the terminology, but like, if they get to be the one, they like sort of like rise up into the sky, but they're basically like dying. It's just like, what? Like, there's all sorts of things, and I'm not sure what if there were recreational pharmaceuticals involved when Andrew Lloyd Webber was, reading some T.S. Eliot, but I wouldn't be surprised. So,
okay, well, let's turn from Hollywood and let's go to something a little more personal. Eating. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Love eating.
And we're all going out together? So, like, people are going out in groups now.
People are going out in groups now.
Starting now.
We haven't been out in groups in a while. So what are the new group dining etiquette things? What comes to mind first?
Well, I think we need to look at it from two respects. The interactions between the diners, right? When you're going out with people, like, does someone take control and do the appetizers and the drinks? Did you just let everybody do their own thing? Do you police what other people tip or don't tip? Because, do you think that it's reflecting on you? All that kind of, because I've been in situations where all of this stuff can go on, right? Who pays, who doesn't pay, how you do all that kind of stuff, right? Are you checking out people's manners? I mean, you can learn a lot from people. Like, and I would say it's not like going out with, like, your best friends, because your best friends, you already know all the crazy stuff. So you're like, whatever, I'm here for it. So when you do that weird thing with the spaghetti that you love to do, then fine, whatever. That's just what you do. But, like, when you don't know people as well, and then you're like, like, work ones are really good, right? You show up and everyone's like, you're watching this, because then, especially if everyone has slightly different social scripts, that can be interesting. So that's like one category. The other one that I think we should talk about too, because I think both of you have also done some food service stuff, right? Is then the performative thing between, like, the serving staff and the people at the table, and how does that work? Because there are some levels there, and everyone pretends like it's something that it's not.
Yeah, it's.
So which one do you want to start?
Well,
first?
I'll start with my own. I don't know if you call it a pet peeve or just an anxiety producing part of going out with a group of people, both that you know and don't know. And one of them then, well, it's less so with the people you know, but it's like, who pays, right? And I know Emily and I genuinely would be like, if we're going to invite people to something, like if we're going to invite a bunch of, some like another couple or a person or a group together, oftentimes we'll just pay, or we go into it assuming we're just going to pay for it. We're going to pay for the meal. But if it's maybe a thing where people get together and decide as a group where to go to eat, maybe it's more likely that we would split the whatever. And then with like friends that you know more closely, it's sometimes that doesn't even matter, because sometimes somebody will pay, sometimes the other person will pay, sometimes you just say, well, let's just go ahead and split it. And there just seems to be less keeping score of who's doing what. But then when it's people you don't know well in the work setting, that's when it kind of gets where it is. This going to go on a company expense? Is somebody expensing it? Is somebody, are we all going to, I think the default is everybody just pays for their own or something, but that gets pretty weird. And that's a thing about group dining, that it'd just be nice if everybody just says, okay, before we have appetizers, how are we paying for this? And it not be weird and awkward.
Right, but because like leaving aside the friends where you already know each other and it all works out and you're not keeping score and stuff, that's like right. The ideal, and that's great and stuff. But when you're going out with like a work group and it's not going on the company expense account, and some people are going to be like having more expensive drinks than others, and some people are going to want appetizers and stuff, like, what's your pet peeves? That's what we should really talk about. Let's not talk about what we should do. What's your pet peeves?
Well,
I know you might have opinions.
I think we do. Well,
because I do.
So normally I think that there's a range. Like I don't like it when people are like, well, you ordered this and then this, this was $2 more. Like, come on. Like at this point in my life, like I don't care. Let's just, if we're all going to just chip in, and there's 4 people at dinner, and 4 people, it's going to be split 4 ways. I don't mind throwing my credit card in and just say split it up, even if I didn't get even if somebody ordered something that is more expensive than me. But if it gets excessive, there's a point where it's like, well, geez, dude, right? I don't want to pay for $100 worth of your drinks when I had like a water, so if somebody's abusing it, that's a pet peeve. If somebody would actively know that we're splitting the check like 4 ways, just split it 4 ways instead of everybody pay for their own, and they abuse it, that would be it. That would kind of annoy me. But
I think we should have more conversations about how there's more solutions available for this problem now, which is like Venmo, right? When we go out to, I try to bring cash. I try to bring cash, have it in my wallet. So if it is a group thing, if somebody says they're, if they don't split checks, right? Like some restaurants don't want to do that, and I so get that. But if somebody's going to pay for it, then I can give them cash. Yeah. Tell me, Casey.
As a former restaurant employee who served for multiple years, there is no excuse for a restaurant to not split checks. There are point of sale systems make it so easy. The only reason why it's not, sorry, I'm getting like, because I was a server. I was a server and I was a server trader, and I got so frustrated because like if the server is just being lazy and they don't like, maybe just because this is what I always assumed separate checks, and I was like, here we go, to make it easy. It made my life easier. Like, and the other thing, we can maybe transition into the other piece. Like, my job as a server is to make it really easy for them to give me money.
Don't get me started.
And whatever I need to do to make it easy for them to give me money means I get more. I don't know why some people don't get that, but when they say, oh, we don't split checks, I'm like, because the computer does it. Like, there is no thought in. It's not like they have to go back in the back and like draw it out and like.
That's what I imagined happening.
No.
Someone have to do math.
Well, they would have to know though who are the couples. Like if there's a couple or if they were just individual. And so I would assume what you're talking about, Casey, is if from the server standpoint, like right when they're taking the order, they're splitting it up. So that if the group is like, we're going to split it, then they know how to split it up, right? And so I think that if you're planning ahead, that's one thing. But if, and oftentimes what we do when we're out with a group, especially more so with our friends, and everybody's like, well, I want this appetizer. Well, order 3 of those, and they're for the table. And, who's getting, if you're going to split it up that way, that might be a little bit more complicated. But usually in those situations, we're just like, yeah, split it 2 ways or 4 ways, or I'm going to pay for everything tonight.
Yeah. But by having
Sure.
these
Yeah,
phones, if somebody does play, if you don't have cash available, you can Venmo people, right? You can send them cash through an app, which makes it like there's no reason that it should be like an unfair situation anymore, that someone pays for everyone else because people don't have, you know, their credit card or whatever it is. There's no excuse for that anymore. So I like that. I like Venmo.
But these are situations where it's like non-friends, more sort of like either professional colleagues, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And then, so a corollary to this before we really move into the whole interactions with servers and stuff, how many faux pas do you permit before you're like, we're just not going to go to lunch anymore?
Oh, I cut it really quick, really quick. One bad experience.
1.5.
Because listen, food's real important. Food is really important. And if you can't be with someone that you're going to be able to enjoy your meal and it's going to, you know, be uncomfortable in any way, one time's enough.
Yeah. People, I mean, I don't know if this is group dining etiquette or it's just dining etiquette, but some people are just, you know, I would never knock somebody for ordering food that they like, but there's also a certain point where like, the restaurant has made a particular dish because it tastes good, and this is just a very personal preference. And so when people go in and try to change like the dish fundamentally to what, I don't know, to what they think that they want, and I think it is only what they think they want, then it's just like, then just stay home and make something, really, you know, and you know, allergies aside, right, or some sort of, you know, something like that, I can get why somebody would ask for a tweak here or there. But I mean, have you heard, I know you both have heard people get into nitty gritty detail of like, well, I would like the salt left off of that, but I would like this, that. I'm like, who the hell are you? Like, if you're that good of a chef, then go back and make it yourself, right?
Yeah. I think it's.
Yep. So one of the restaurants I worked in, so I worked in a very American style restaurant where the customer was always right. The only thing you could do is complain about the customer in the back about how needy and entitled they were. Then I worked in a restaurant where many of the servers were from France, and the concept of dining and the traditions around it in France are totally different. They're like, we have something that you want. You are so lucky to be here. And so when you, like, if you show up and you're like, oh, I want da 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 da, they're like, there's nothing better than the disdain of a French server.
Totally experienced that.
And when they come back in the back, they're like, oh, I can't.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. For me personally, like, I think the group dining situation, because we're coming out of the pandemic, will be interesting. I think we're going to see more articles in the popular media about that kind of stuff. And people just not figuring out how to act, especially because like restaurants are so strapped for servers and stuff like that right now. Like they don't have the same sort of number of employees that they used to have. And, you know, we've been out in a few places, you know, recently, and have, you know, gone to places where we know what the quality of service is usually like pre-pandemic, and then seeing what it's like now, and it's slower, and you know, there's some hiccups, and I bet people are not going to be as patient as they once were when it comes to that kind of stuff, and we haven't seen people acting truly nasty like they will.
It is a perfect storm for chaos because restaurants are short-staffed. They've been trying to make things happen through difficult situations for 2 years, right? And the American consumer is not necessarily known for its empathy for others who are working hard on their behalf, right? And then you have all these people emerging from their homes in their comfy sweats that probably fit a little tighter than they wanted them to before the pandemic. They're hungry, and they haven't done this with other people. And all of a sudden it's loud. I remember one of the first times they went out to lunch when we first started to open up, and I went to a restaurant, and I'm like, it is loud. These people need to shut up. You know, you've been in your house and it's quiet, and you can sit over in the corner with your little bag of takeout that you got delivered, whatever, and no one's going to bother you. But like, you go in a restaurant and you're like, these people need to stop talking. I'm that guy now. Because I remember when I was a server, like older people generally would show up and say, "It's so loud in here," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then so now I go in there and I'm like, "I'm that person now."
Just last night, I was at dinner and we walked in and we're like, "Oh, it's so loud in here," and we stayed and we had a great time. I was thinking, I know we want to talk about our experiences maybe when we were in food service, and I had one thing that I thought of that happens to anyone that is in the ice cream business, right? So
the ice cream game.
serving ice cream at Baskin Robbins, and right, people drop their cones. It happens, or accidents, whatever. A kid just turns it over. All things happen. But I remember that was always how someone is as a human being is judged by how they handle that experience. Okay. As a server, right? Some people just immediately come over and say, "Oh, could you just replace this? My kid dropped it, or I dropped it, or whatever," and they don't offer to pay, right? And so that's okay, because then you can say, like, it's going to be whatever it was back then. I don't know, a quarter, because I'm so old now. Whatever, $2. And so, but if it's on the onus of the person at the restaurant, like the person who doesn't offer, that just says, "Hey, can you just give me a replacement?" Or "My kid dropped it," and they look at you with these sad eyes. Then they're placing the onus on you to determine, oh, are you just going to give it to me for free, or are you going to make me pay? And if you say you're going to pay, then if that's where the crux is. Like, number one, I think people should be like, "Oh, I'm happy to pay for," not even "I'm happy to pay for another scoop. I need to pay for another scoop because this thing happened," right? It's not the restaurant's fault. It's nobody's fault.
That you don't know how to raise your child.
Yeah, but I remember people that when you'd say, it's going to, and I remember we had some discretion, like if somebody drops their scoop, and if they're nice about it, we're just going to give them another scoop and move on and not make them pay. It's when people confront you on it that you're like, as a server, "No, and I wish I could charge you double because you're a jerk."
Like it was your fault, like the way you put that scoop in the cone,
the way you put
caused my kid to turn it upside down and drop it.
It wasn't sturdy on there, and so it's your fault. But when you would say they have to pay, and then they either give you a look, right, like of disappointment, or of like, "Oh, you're not cool," or if they orally tell you, "Oh, do we really have to? It was just an accident." Like those people, like no, that's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think everyone to work food service a little, because you get to see people, like, it's pretty unvarnished, because food is really special, but it's also very personal, and so you get to see a side of people, or an entitlement, or whatever. Like as a server, I get to see into people's lives and the way that you're like,
right,
wow.
how they handle conflict and all that kind of stuff. Well, just picking up on just something Emily said, like like what I don't think people, and this is why I agree with Casey, people should work food service, because I don't think those people are coming in and expecting it to be free, really are thinking about what they're asking that person to do.
Sure.
They're like, we sell ice cream. That's our job to sell. If we give away the ice cream, then we can't sell the ice cream and we don't make money. So it's like, okay, well, they're thinking of it, well, it's just an accident, I should have more. They're not thinking of, I'm asking this probably teenage kid or somebody working a minimum wage job who's has other crap to deal with, to put their job on the line for giving away free food to me, when, it's good that your manager or whoever gave you a little discretion on deciding it. But essentially you're saying, that's not always the case. You can't assume that's the case in every place you're going. So you're essentially putting a low level employees
in a bad situation,
in a situation where you're pressuring them to do something that could get them in trouble. It's BS thing to do. And obviously I think if more people thought of it that way, probably they wouldn't do it, but maybe they would.
There you go, giving people way too much credit.
That's one thing that people say about me. "Ryan, you're such a nice guy. You're always giving people the benefit of the doubt. Glass half full."
Yeah, that's Ryan for you.
What else did you wanted to say, Casey? What were some of your pet peeves as a server?
Well, pet peeves, I didn't like being treated like a servant, and many people did. Because I actually liked to make a good experience for people and like help and because it was a celebratory thing. There's so many times I loved it, like just loved it. One of the places that I worked was at a ski resort, and it was in the West, and the breakfast place had big tall windows that looked up on the mountain, and people would come from like the East where they didn't know what the Rocky Mountains were like, and so they would show up for that first breakfast, and they sit down and they look up and they're like, wow. I mean, that made it easy, and I loved to make it special for them. And yes, I'll let you move your thing over by the window and all that kind of thing, because it became an event and they appreciated it. And then when it makes it a human interaction and you can help with things, then I loved that. I mean, also, but when people treat you like, oh, you need to do this and snap, 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 which the semi-famous owner of that could be that way sometimes, of the place that I worked. That was always sort of interesting. But I guess it's when it's the owner, then, well, that's another level of entitlement.
We actually, a couple of years ago, it was actually right before the pandemic started, we were having breakfast at a nice restaurant in Chicago. Can't remember the name of the restaurant. Oh my gosh! But it was it was in the Four Seasons there, right? I don't remember. It was a nice restaurant, but they specialize in serving breakfast. And so we go there, we sit down, we're looking forward to having a nice fancy breakfast. And we sit down, and there was a guy and I assume his wife.
It was his wife.
Just next to us. And in the middle of our meal, he starts talking to us about, like, inserting himself into our conversation. And it comes out that he's a restaurant owner and all this kind of stuff. And he was such an ass.
But as soon as he starts talking about it, his wife excuses herself. Like I could see this, like as soon as she's like, you know what, honey, I'm going to head back up to the room. It was so nice to meet you folks. And she went upstairs and left us with him. And he stayed for almost our whole meal. It was terrible because he just wanted to talk about his restaurant and complain about the restaurant we were in, which we were enjoying.
We're trying to enjoy,
much.
And he's complaining about this and telling us what we should order, what we shouldn't order after we order stuff. And I'm just like, oh, I'm thinking, I didn't invite you to my breakfast. Shut up. But he kept going on and on and on. And I think we tried, I mean, we weren't rude to him. I think it was just like, and I don't think he was trying to be rude, but he was being rude. And afterwards, at some point towards the end of our meal, he gets up and leaves. And Emily and I just look at each other and say, I bet you there's something written about this guy. And so we looked him up, and sure enough, that we found the whole thread of former employees just trashing this guy. And we're like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah, that's in the lack of self-awareness column that is.
And it was
so
a good experience because if that happened again, that's the first time it's happened to that extreme. And now knowing that happened, if I had the presence of mind, I would have just said, excuse me, we're here on vacation and we just want to enjoy our meal together. It's been nice to meet you, but we're just going to have a conversation and say something polite like that and move on. And we didn't and should have, because he didn't know, right? He wasn't aware. And next time I will hope I remember this so I have the presence of mind.
Well, but you mentioned the things like something that reminded me of this situation is one of the things he wanted me to do. I ordered a coffee and he says, oh, no. Get that waiter back here. Don't have him give you this coffee. Have him go down the hallway to this other place and get a coffee from there. And I'm like, and so the owner that is overly demanding of servers, I'm like, oh, that's that guy. Like he wanted me, who I just didn't want to talk to him, and to ask my waiter, who I didn't want to inconvenience any further, because every time we ordered, this guy would interrupt the server and us ordering. So the ordering process was complicated, to now further complicate life for the server by having him walk down the hall to get me a different kind of coffee. No, that wasn't gonna happen.
Oh yeah, no. That is why one of the things I learned as a server and bartender was this is how you manipulate people. Perception is reality. And so like that guy, I would have walked back to the regular coffee, got it, and I would have waited a minute, and then I would have been like, oh, I totally went back. I actually do that for all of my guests. You're right, sir. It is so much better. Like, we should, and just like lay it on thick, and then all of a sudden, I'm the hero, and stroke the ego, whatever, and then like, whatever. But I also, because people would send like drinks back, right? When you're a bartender, there's a certain customer that's like, I want it to be really strong. And I'm like, whatever. And so they'd send it back because it didn't taste. And I'm like, it's not supposed to taste like turpentine. That's sort of the goal of most mixology, is not to have it taste like that, but whatever. But, you know, they'd order things like Long Island iced tea, which is supposed to be a smooth drink, but whatever. And so they would send it back. And so would I make that drink new? No, you just pour a tiny little, a couple drops of gin down the straw.
Oh my gosh, that's
because
brilliant.
Their first hit's going to be gin. And they're going to be like, and I cannot tell you how often people are like, they'd even walk up to the bar and be like, oh, that second one was so good. So much. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I agree. I agree.
That is brilliant.
Long pour for you every time, you know?
That's hilarious.
Every time. And then maybe this will tell you too much about me. Like, I would get like secret joy from doing some of those things like that. Like, they were totally unaware and they thought I was so on their team. And I'm like, in the background, like, what?
So,
like, one of the places I worked, we had breadsticks. Okay. I don't know what it is about breadsticks, but the breadsticks were the thing for a lot of people. They were not the thing for me because I saw how they showed up. They show up in a big plastic bag, like coated in this buttery, like goopy stuff. And then you would just take them out and throw them in. You put them in the little like last minute heater baker thingy, whatever. And then you throw them in a drawer. They'd stay warm or whatever. And, you know, people I think they thought there was some like, you know, mini French chef back there baking these little mini baguettes, like, and they're like, they have to be perfect. Like, they have to be this soft or whatever. And I'm like, you realize they're just in a drawer with like a wet towel on the bottom to keep them, like, whatever. And like, but some people would be like so ridiculous and send you back to the kitchen like over and over and over again. And I still remember this one people that I had. And I brought it back and they'd been so obnoxious. And I was like, here you go. And they're like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. I said, no, I want you to taste it right now and let me know if I need to change it. Because it was always that you'd give it to them, they'd wait, then it would be cold and they would complain. So I'd be like, no, we're going to taste it right now. Like, you let me know right now. And they're like, and then they all of a sudden they feel the confrontation. I'm like, yep, guess what? Control right here. Go. You put it in your mouth and then it's fine. I'm like, good, because now I don't have to come back.
Bad customers they forget how much control servers have over their food, right? Like,
I never forget that now. Never. I suck up to every server that brings me something.
Well, so here's what I wanted to maybe transition into. So now, I mean, we've all had public service, you know, public serving sort of experiences. So what are the things that servers do now that, I mean, I look at them, I actively try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But what are still some of the things that you see servers doing now that are like, nope, you can't do that, or you shouldn't be doing that?
I'm a big person. I want my water filled all the time because I'm just someone who drinks the whole time. But if they don't, I don't get upset with the server over. I'm happy to just ask for water. I'll ask for like a carafe that they can have at the table. But it's something I notice. Yeah, I see your choir.
You grab my glass like this.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope. That's. I'm like, oh wow, just come out of training, huh?
Yeah,
but I'm really nervous.
One of your big ones is the not being able to pay timely at the end. Like, when you're ready to go, you want to walk out the door and go. And I get that.
Right. Like, Casey said earlier, don't make it hard for me to give you my money. Like, just take my money. And I would say
it is.
And I would say that we've had not meals ruined, but we've had less enjoyable meals made less enjoyable by the fact that once we're ready to go, we can't find anybody to take our money, and have had to call down people, have had to stand up and go find somebody to say, we've been ready to pay here. And you know, it's bad when you can't just find them for them to give you the check, but it's really bad when they've given you the check and you have your card ready and all they need to do is pick it up and run it, and you can't find anybody. It's just like, just take my money so I can leave. I'm not ordering any more food. Don't you want to give my table to somebody?
Right. That is probably the hardest skill for a server to learn. It's learnable, so it's inexcusable if they don't eventually learn it. Because like the first part of the meal is the most labor intensive, and so you're busy, and so you have a lot of things to do. And it's like, you order it, you bring it, you put it in front of the people, right? But that reading the table of when certain things should happen, because some servers are abysmal at recognizing when you want to sit and chat with your people or whatever, when you want to take it more slowly, or when you like, I need to get out of Dodge, let's go. And being able to read that is super important. But I mean, there are ways. Like I would, when I was training servers, I would teach them, like, especially like during the lunchtime when you had no idea and you didn't have time to do it, it'd be like, you would just take it back and be like, I'm glad everything's okay. Here's your receipt. If you want dessert, let me know. But in case you want to hurry out of here, here you go. But no big deal. All you have to do is, like, I would set like the little waiter book up and I'm like, just lay it down. And that's my signal. I'll leave you alone to talk unless you want, just like set some parameters for people so they knew. And then it was
seems
easy.
like
and
people in New York City and other big cities where they have like plays or other things, I've noticed, in Las Vegas, a lot of times they'll be like, do you need to get to a show? Like if you're there for dinner, is there something you need to get to? And so that they know kind of what
the
if
tempo
you're
needs to.
Yeah. And I always think that that's good. But even like, there's this labor intensive part at the beginning, and then I know that they're now doing the first part, that labor intensive part, at another table. And so they do disappear for a little bit. But, I don't mind even catching their eye and saying, hey, we need something. So
yeah.
I get that, but there have definitely been times when servers, and maybe it's just a factor of them being so busy, but there's definitely been times where they are avoiding the gaze of anybody at the table and just walking around. Like, it's me, it's either they're super busy, which I get, but still, or two, they're just like, they're in their own world, and it's just like, no, your job here is to get me out of here. Actually, your job is part of your job is to give me the food, but the other part is to get me out of here so you can get somebody else in it and pay. And I'm always surprised when they don't do that. And yeah, I mean, so I would say most servers that we run into are pretty okay at it. Mm-hmm. It's but there have been notable exceptions when it's just been awful.
Yeah, I'm usually just real grateful to be there at a restaurant. I like eating out. I'm grateful for the service. Somebody is actually bringing me food and I don't have to prepare it, and happy for the meal. Something that used to happen that doesn't happen anymore because I don't drink soda anymore, like very occasionally, like maybe once or twice a year I'll have something. But I used to drink it more occasionally, a few times a year. And you've been with me on these occasions where, I'll say, oh, I would like a Coke. And they'd be like, diet? Right? Diet. That'll be diet. And that has happened to me so many times. Not Ryan. That doesn't happen, But I think that servers should be taught not to do that. And maybe I'm one of those people with the face that they're like, we hate you, just like celebrities. And they're like, we're going to be passive aggressive and just try to do digs at this lady. It works. It totally works. So maybe you do want to do that for certain people, servers. But I would just be like, Ryan, like, what is it about me that they're like, diet? Yeah.
Yeah. That. I'm not gonna lie. I was snarky on occasion as a server.
So it's purposeful, is what you're saying. It's no accident.
I think that's gotta be.
Sometimes, yeah. Like some people would order. I remember when people would order diet caffeine-free Coke, and I was like, cold bubbly water coming up. Like, like, why are you drinking this? I'll just bring you water. But anyway. And depending on the person, sometimes I would say things like that just because I was trying to tease them and lighten the mood. That was part of my job. But then sometimes I'm like, because then some people would be like, because they would have reasons.
Yeah, and we don't.
For what? I'm like, oh, I don't care those reasons.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Like, I think these days, all I expect now of a server is, I don't need them to entertain me. Although, because I think it takes a special skill. We've had some great servers that have been entertaining. Not all of them are. And so I think maybe it goes back to what you said, Casey, about reading the table. They need to read the table. And if we want more interaction, give more interaction. If it seems like, the group wants to talk to each other, don't try to be part of it. Get in, get out, get the orders, get out, get the appetizers there. So I just, I don't need them to entertain. And I don't need them to be by every, 30 seconds to make sure that the last sip of water gets refilled, but, long periods of times in between things, just checking in. And I like it when a server comes by, everything okay, every 10 minutes or something. And then don't avoid the gaze so we can call you over or something. Give me my check.
Yeah.
So I have a question. My final question in this, for this thing of this stuff we're talking about. What celebrity would you like to go out to dinner with?
Gosh, that's a tough one, Casey. Will Smith. I want to go out with Will Smith right now.
I want to go to dinner with Will.
I'm really empathetic, Will. I'll pet you and let you know it's going to be okay. Everyone makes mistakes.
Apparently, I'm the only one on Will's side. Hit on his wife. I don't know.
Lady Gaga seems really, really cool. I really like Lady Gaga.
Who would you want to go out, Casey? You're the one that asked the question. You tell us first.
Well, it depends on where we're going and what's going on. But I think a fun, like now you've got me thinking of comedians. Like Wanda Sykes, I think would be a great dinner. I think that the conversation would be very interesting. I'm trying to think of people I've seen in interviews that would. But of course, then my manipulation kicks in, right? So like, I want to have Taylor Swift and Jake Gyllenhaal. I want to take them out to dinner and just watch that. And see if he wears the scarf or not. But like, I would love to have like older, more experienced actors like Judi Dench and Anthony Hopkins. Like there would be war stories, or Meryl Streep, Glenn Close. Like there would be some really interesting war stories about stuff. I think that would be super interesting. Like I almost would want to have actors who've been at it for a really long time, because I want to hear those stories, like, and have enough of them so that you could just sit back and sip your water, Diet Coke, or caffeine-free Diet Coke, bubbly water, whatever, and just watch them go. I think that would be super fun.
So I think I honestly can't think of any famous person that I'd want to have dinner with, like one-on-one, like that.
No. We already know the answer to this. You already answered this last week. Nicki Minaj. Right. We already know this.
That's true.
I think he's worried she would say no.
Right.
Yeah.
There's been so much that's gone on between us.
Yeah. You have to decide, is it dinner because you want to get to know the person, or is it dinner because they'd just be fun to be with? And I almost gravitate toward, like, some people would be intimidating, and I don't think I would enjoy having dinner with someone that I'm so intimidated by that I can't let myself just have a regular conversation, like that hero worship. And so I want to be with someone who's going to give me the skinny on what's going on and what the industry is like, and maybe like the gossipy stuff. I think that's what would be really fun.
Right.
So whoever would be good at that.
Whatever. Yeah. So if it's one-on-one, like you'd have to, if I was having dinner with some celebrity one-on-one, it'd have to be somebody who is engaging. Right. And I don't even think we know that about these celebrities, even if we see them like on a talk show, like, some of them appear to be better storytellers and stuff than others, but that's, still them performing. So what are they like one-on-one? Yeah. And who knows, right? So I think that's harder, but in a setting where it's like maybe a group setting, where they are performing for people and you're just essentially an audience, it's a dinner and a show essentially, that would be a much more comfortable situation to be in. And, I don't know. There's a lot of actors probably. I'd go back and have to look at maybe some old talk shows of people who seem to be funny.
Yeah, you'd want to be with funny people, the comedians,
funny people.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to be with anyone serious.
Right.
Yeah. And the gossipy thing, and like you're talking about, like people early in their career, they're being too careful. You want the people at the end of their career and they just don't care. Yeah. nothing to lose. Like they're spilling the tea.
And somebody who's willing to tell the stories, right? Because I know I'm sure there's I don't know. I assumed a lot of these actors. I know everybody in Hollywood, but I assume that there's a lot of people who are just like they're like you said, they're reserved. They don't want to, whatever. I want somebody who's like has an axe to grind and is going to be telling some stories.
Yeah.
You're inviting Russell Crowe to dinner.
He would be a great Yeah, you never know what he's going to do. Get a couple drinks in Russell and see what happens. Yeah, why not?
Make sure you're sitting on the other side of the table.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't feel overly awed by celebrities. I don't know. Do you?
I've not met a lot of celebrities, and I don't feel overly odd, but I do feel like there's people I'd be intimidated by, but the people are. I don't think there's a single man I would be intimidated by, but it would be women.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are just so smart, so spot on, so amazing. And I think that's a little intimidating. I love it. Those are the ones that I would have any hero worship for. Like when you said Wanda Sykes, I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't want to go to dinner with her. She's so smart and funny. Like and I'd be like, what could I even say that she'd want to have? I'd want to go to dinner with someone that would at least, entertain the thought that I might be fun to be at dinner with too.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're doing a one-on-one, yeah. At least somebody who's on board with the fact that they're going to make it interesting or whatever. I don't know. You hear stories about some celebrities. Oh, I'm trying to think of a name. But you'll every once in a while hear of some celebrities and them having an off-camera, non-Instagram planned sort of interaction with an actual human being, and people talk glowingly about how nice or kind they were and how they had conversations about other stuff, like whether it's their kids or, whatnot. But, I think you have to do research to figure out something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to.
And that just might be planted by the PR.
What if you went through all the effort to go have a one-on-one dinner with some celebrity and they were absolute boring? That'd be like the worst.
Maybe they set it up that way because they don't want to have dinner with pedestrian people like us. They're like, I'm going to be super boring, so nobody wants to ever go to dinner with me. That's the ultimate move there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll set something up with Nikki, and we'll see. Maybe she'll.
Good luck.
Can't wait to hear.
I'm going to put it out in the universe. It'll happen. Okay.
Ryan, Matt.
I'm manifesting. All right, folks. Do we have anything else?
That's all I got.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining in. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.